As a Gmod user, you might be jealous of the things that Source Filmmaker users can do with retexturing models in their game by being able to change the texture of a model very easily. Yes, I just said the same thing twice. How am I great? As a Gmod user, you might be very jealous of this and you might want to do this yourself. Until now, there was a very much more difficult way to do something like this. But now, with the inclusion of the submaterial tool and a few extra techniques, it is now very easy to extract your add-ons and actually create custom textures for them. And not only that, have them work on the actual model itself, because we're talking textures here and specific materials. So I made a tutorial for a bunch of users on DeviantArt, and I am going to publicly state the steps of this tutorial. These steps and these tutorials will mainly focus around the enhanced Splatoon Ragdoll pack, which have been the enhanced Splatoon Ragdolls have been created by DaRealUser, who is very interesting. I'm not sure if these are deleted at the time of this watching, but I'm pretty sure that this works for any other add-on. Keep in mind, I'm specifically talking about an add-on. I'm not talking about a material in your materials subfolder. I'm talking about materials for your add-ons. So I'm going to provide a couple links in the description for a couple things you should do before you start this tutorial. 1. Subscribe in the workshop to the submaterial tool by Kawoosh64. You need this, and you absolutely you won't be able to survive without it. You're also going to need extended spawn menu. That can be easily done via a workshop search. And you also need VTFEdit, which you can find by a Google search. So, without further ado, let's go and start the tutorial. Now, these first couple of steps are very important because the first thing we need to do in order to get custom textures is to even get the textures to customize itself. You don't necessarily want to be putting a blank slate on something you don't even know. So, find your add-ons folder, which is, for me, in all this junk. I'm showing this process because you eventually are going to need to come, if you're using Windows at least, you're going to need to have this at the top of your screen. I don't care if you're using Windows 8 or whatever, it has to look like that. So you have to be in your add-ons folder. By the way, get used to the screen. I'm going to be making a whole bunch of tutorials in the future, and I'm going to be focusing around this very specific folder. It's called Gary's Mod. So you also mod this. So as you can see, I've already started with a couple of things, and I'm going to explain in future videos. We're specifically looking for the enhanced Splatoon Ragdoll pack. Now let me just get through this first because it might be very confusing. These files are GMA files. GMA files are just a fancy word for container, and they contain all the models and materials that of your ragdolls of anything you've downloaded. All of the data for the add-on is inside the GMA. It's just a map has it, a tool has it. The only reason, and even when they get updated or when they get deleted from the workshop, the old versions still stay in your computer. So technically, you could do this to old dead add-ons as well. The only reason they don't show up in Gmod is because they don't receive updates, therefore it doesn't see a need to put them in. So right now, I'm just going to scroll down through my ginormous list of ragdolls here and maps and stuff. I've got a lot in here, and I'm warning you that right now. Lots of Gmod users do. And I found my ragdoll pack. Now you technically could do this right here and now, but it's a good idea to move it. So I'm just going to press copy. You can do this here. You don't have to do this in whatever folder, but I'm just going to create a random folder. So I'm going to go create a folder here called tutorial. This is just a test, okay? So now I have the enhanced Splatoon ragdoll pack, which is basically all the enhanced Inklings by DaRealUser. Now what I want to do is extract it. So you technically could do this in the add-ons folder, but what we're doing, it will render your Gmod load times, it will render them a bit worse. Now the reason why I've skipped recordings is because I didn't want to show you a certain thing. So we're now going to find a specific other folder. I'm using Windows Explorer, so you may see differences. I'm going to block out a certain thing when I'm editing this. So right now we have a folder named tutorial. That's fine. I'm not concerned about that right now. Program file, and I'm gonna go to Gary's Mod again, but I'm going to stop at a specific location. So go through the same folders, Gary's Mod, and stop right here. Do not press Gary's Mod unless you want to go to your add-ons. But we're not concerned about that right now. We're concerned with bin. Welcome to a whole bunch of debug stuff for Gmod. We're not concerned with all of that. We're concerned with Gmad. Notice how it has GMA in the title? This is an add-on creator and also, consequently, an add-on extractor. So I'm going to drag this over Gmad. And now a thing will pop up and a long list will scroll down. Once it's done, there's a lot of stuff in this add-on, so I'm waiting patiently. Once it's done, a folder should be created and you should have all the materials and models of that specific add-on. If it's a ragdoll, at least. I'm pretty sure if it's a different type of add-on, like a map, it will have other types of things. So let's move on to the next few steps. Now for texture editing, we're not really concerned with the models. The models are just the actual models themselves, so they're just like the actual ragdoll and the data for the ragdolls. We're concerned with the materials. So scroll down this long list, and I know that these are in... actually, are they in here? No, are they? Actually, yes they are, I was right. So in here, at least for the Inklings in Splatoon, there's a long list of junk here. So, for our convenience, since we really don't need all of this, unless you really want to go ahead and edit the body or the eyelids or whatever, I don't understand. I'm going to use eye colors as a means for this, because many people on DeviantArt that I specified earlier in the video were asking me, how do you change the eyes on the Inklings? Well, these are it. These are the textures that change the eye. Well, not that one. Kind of that one, but that's not what I mean. These ones where it says grey, green, orange, pink, these are the textures for Gmod that function with the eyes. So I'm going to grab all of these colors, and I'm also going to grab Inkling INV. You need Inkling INV, so I'm going to copy them and place them in my tutorial folder. So I'm going to go to C, tutorial, and I'm going to paste them all in here. Now you also need something else. See these folders up here that specify the eye colors? It doesn't matter which one you pick, but you need to go in one. I'm going to go in green, and I'm going to copy paste the eyeballs here and also place them here, because we're going to need them later. Trust me on that. There's a reason why I told you in the very beginning that you need to download VTFEdit, because you need to actually get these out in order to edit them. So I'm going to use Inkling Eye Green, since that is the most closest to me. Inkling Eye Green.vtf. As you can see, this is an eye. Very obviously, it is an eye. Jeez. So we need to change this into a thing where we can actually edit it. So we need to check. I want to change its color to a darker green. It's kind of turquoisey at the moment. I want to change it to a darker green. This is going to be my tutorial eye. So I'm going to press export in file, and I'm going to scroll to my tutorial folder. Oh, thanks Windows. And with these eyes, it's not the same for every texture. You can save some textures as a PNG. I'd recommend not as a JPG because JPGs have file compression and that could lead to color inconsistency, and I don't like editing JPGs. You probably wouldn't either if you're concerned about the model's quality, and I'm not really familiar with BMPs. I would prefer for this texture TGAs. Some, and I repeat, some models can allow you to use PNG, but those that have alpha channels, which are things that you really need to use, at least in this one, you need, and in terms of the Inkling eyes, you need to save them as TGA files. TGA files can also be used to save screenshots in Gmod, which I'll also be going over in a tutorial later. So I'm just going to save it as Inkling_eye_green. So now we have a file to edit. That's great. Now I'm going to go over some things. This step is the most fun for me. This is where you can edit the texture to whatever the hell you want. You can even put a black squiggly line over the texture and that would count. This is Photoshop. I'm fairly aware that most of you probably won't have Photoshop, but I'm just going to edit it and show you what I do with my textures, just to show you with a bit what I do. So I'm trying to make it dark green, so I'm just going to change like the things right around this. Change the color balance like this. No, I'll change it like that, and then I'll change it like this. Oh, that's actually pretty cool. I'll take that over whatever the hell I wanted before, and then I'll just change the saturation a bit. Make it a slight bit more green. This is just the fun part. You can do whatever the hell you want here, but with the Inkling eyes, there's little details that I'd suggest you probably just change the hue for. So I'm just going to put some green there. That's fine. Now I'm going to change the hue again. Something I really like about this. Oh, now it looks like a little grey blue. And yeah, I'm pretty set for my new eye. Doesn't that look pretty? Doesn't that look kind of pretty? I mean, just saying. Now you have to save this Inkling eye as a TGA. Save it in the same format that you exported it in. So for me, I saved it as a TGA. It's going to be a TGA. So I'm going to go and do that because I know how to do that. I'm going to skip 2 tutorials for GIMP and Paint.net, which I know are both free and you might prefer using those. For GIMP users, the process is a little bit different. You still open the same file. By the way, I'm doing this at a different time to the rest of the recording, so yeah. So you open Inkling Eye Green, and there's a couple ways you can do this. If you're really concerned about exactability, you can select this eye here, because this is the eye, and you can hue and saturize it yourself by, you know, by looking very closely at the screen and such. If you want to view a preview, you can go to the layer, transparency, threshold, and preview by pressing 0, by turning the slider to 0, but then press cancel. Then you can save it as a TGA by pressing export as and renaming it to the one that you want to call it. To the name of the TGA that you want to call it. So you call it dark green if you so want, but I'm not going to do that right now. The other method involves it's slightly, very slightly. You can't even notice it in Gmod, but for those who are accurate like me, it's not really a big deal, since again it's barely noticeable at all to the general person who's going to be using this. But if you're concerned about this, then I'd recommend not doing this. But if you're not concerned and you rather a very minuscule tiny piece of inconsistency, then follow this tip, which will probably help you much better. Go to threshold alpha and turn the slider all the way to 0 when you open the thing, and then it's completely visible. This turns it all white, so I'm gonna do a thing later. We'll have it where it looks kind of faded in Gmod, so I'm gonna, you select it the same way, then I'm just gonna hue, saturize it a bit, you know, do this, maybe do a bit of this, and press OK. Then when you're done with editing, turn the opacity of the layer, which is right here, this little bar here. You should have layers and brushes open. Turn that down to, oh yeah, it doesn't matter if you've got this bit selected, it will do it anyway. Turn it down to around about 10. Then, as you can see, it looks kind of black. Don't turn it to 0 because then you won't be able to see it at all. So, I recommend 10 or maybe 5, but not 0. Do not do 0. And then, to export it as a TGA, you press export as, and then you save it as whatever the heck you want to call it. So, like, Inkling Eye dark green again. And, you know, when you press export, a little thing will pop up saying that, and it will say export. Just press yes. And this method, this one with the opacity, will very, very slightly put a very, very small fade, but you're not going to see it if you don't have, you know, the eyes to notice it. So it's up to you which one you choose, but GIMP is free, so both methods should be fine for you, and it doesn't even require any external stuff. Just download GIMP, and GIMP's free. So yeah, I'll just go back to the rest of the recording now. So now that we have our texture, we now need to open it in VTFEdit in order for it to actually be a VTFEdit texture. So as you can see, I've opened Inkling Eye Green from before, but we can now import, and from the tutorial, Inkling Eye Green 2 is the one that I edited. Green 3 was from GIMP. So open, and for the Inklings, this might be different depending on your texture, and you're going to have to check that in info. I'll show you how to do that in a second. For the Inkling Eyes, pick BigRA 8888 or quadruple 8. And do it for the alpha format too. Don't touch the rest of these; they're not important, unless you know they're needed for your one. So this is the thing. It should be totally like this, unless your texture that you're editing has something different in it. Press info if you want to know the format of the original texture, or the texture format you specify for it. I picked BigRA 8888, so it's alright. Don't worry about these, it should be fine. If you're editing a custom texture, all the rest of this should be done for you, except for the format. So now that I've got the texture and I'm ready to do stuff with it, I'm going to press save as. And in the tutorial, I'm going to save this as Inkling Eye Dark Green, and with underscores for the spaces. Don't put spaces, I don't know what that will do, but I don't think that's a very good idea because computers don't work well with spaces in coding. So save as a VTF file, there won't be anything else to save it as, and press save. Now we have an Inkling Eye dark green texture over here, so let's work with that now. I don't need VTFEdit anymore. So now we need to do a couple of other things. Now I'm back in my add-ons folder, and I didn't show you because I already showed you how to get to your add-ons folder, but this next step requires you to get to your add-ons folder. Now you're not going to have to do this consecutively unless you're really that organized centric, but you're going to have to create a folder, which I've already done for several other things. You're going to have to create a folder for the materials that you created to go into. I've already created a folder called Eyes. You can call it whatever the hell you want. Like you see here, I've called mine Go to Materials, called mine Inkling Original Weapons, Shirts, Shoes. It really does not matter what you call it, what this part is called. So then I'm going to go into Eyes because I'm going to have a couple of eyes in there, so you're going to see a couple. And I'm going to go in here. Now you need to create another folder in here called Materials. Now, unlike the first folder, you need this to be called Materials. You can't call it whatever the hell you want. You have to call it Materials exactly as it says. If you know your spelling, that shouldn't be a hard deal. Now as you can see, I've put a whole bunch of stuff in here. You know, things that I've already done. So yay, you need to place your textures in here. And as you can see, there's a couple of VMT files in there, which there's an icon for because I forgot to delete a program. Oh well, it's good for labeling. But I'm going to go over that step now, how to make your add-ons. So now that we have our Inkling forget this one because this came with the VTFEdit and we don't need it. We need these ones because I told you to get them before. So eyeball L, I'm just going to call it Inkling eyeball L, and I'm going to call it dark green. I'm going to do the same for this one. This is just for convenience. You can call them anything you want. You can call them Inkling eyes, dark green. It doesn't matter what you call it, but what's in them is important. Now, you need the VMTs to get this thing to work, so don't worry, you don't need to worry about some complex thing. VMTs are literally just text. So, these are the Inkling eyes. I'm not sure what your VMT this is mainly for a couple of friends of mine. If you're editing completely different textures, you might have completely different rules. But some principles will remain the same, you know, like editing it and all that. So this is mainly for those editing VMTs. You need to know that your file names. So I'm going to open this in Notepad. And DaRealUser was very nice and supplied some comments. So what we need as Inkling eyeball L dark green is we need to remove the file path. The file path is this thing. Because when we're going to be putting it in materials, there's going to be no file path for it to go in. Mainly, they do this to organize it. I'm not going to do that. And for convenience sake, we're not going to do that. So let's get rid of that. And let's also get rid of this. This is why I told you to get Inkling IEnv before, because it requires Inkling IEnv. Now these models in particular require TF2, and that's because these things are here. iExtra, iCornea, iLightwarp. You don't need them. Seriously, you don't. So now that you have this here, $iris is the texture that you've edited. So I've called mine Inkling Eye Dark Green. I need to put Inkling Eye Dark Green in there. Now, unlike most code things where it requires you're like, some people might be used to HTML code where HTML requires you to put the file type at the end of something if you're going to be putting a file in there. You don't need to put .vtf at the end. It will not require you to do that. All you need is just the file name in its exact form. And also do this for Inkling IEnv for those doing the Splatoon models. In env map right here. Whoop. Once you're done, you should be perfect. Don't worry about all these other values, they're not important. So I'm going to save. I'm just going to press save. You can Control S it too. And I'm going to do the same for the other one. So VMTs can call on the same texture. So yeah, technically this is kind of useless, but it is kind of useful. So dark green. Oh, it's green's already there. Haha, I'm an idiot. And see, Inkling Eye Dark Green is now there. And we're also going to save this too. It's kind of redundant, I know. And if you realize, yes, you could use one. But for some reason, there's two eyeball L's on ours, so I'm not going to bother with that. So now I'm going to move on to the next couple of steps. So now we need to put them in the correct locations. These are the files that you're generally going to be caring about. So I already have Inkling IEnv in the folder I'm going to copy paste it to, but as a first time user, you're going to need to put Inkling IEnv in with this selection as well. So I'm going to deselect Inkling IEnv for now, but if you have not done this and you're only editing textures custom for the first time for the Inkling eyes, you need this. You absolutely need this because I just told you to put a piece of code in that requires it. So press this, and I'm going to press cut myself because I'm going to need this. So your VMT files and this. You don't need your targets or your other VTFs, or you don't even need that. You just need that. You just need all this. So now this is my folder that I was going to copy paste them into. So just press paste, and they should be there. And they should be in your materials, and they should be all like that. Congratulations, they're in Gmod. Now I'm going to do a few things. So I'm going to go into Steam, and this, you might have to do this step, but it may not be necessary. So I'm pretty sure if you're a Gmod user like me, you should pretty much be very aware on how to open Steam on your computer. Don't worry about these, I never play them, so don't even ask me if I'm going to play them, I don't. They're just for textures. So go to Gary's Mod, right click Gary's Mod, press Properties, go to Local Files, and verify integrity of game cache. I'll come back to you when it's complete because this usually takes like 20 minutes. So it just says one file failed to validate and will be reacquired. That doesn't matter, it just means that it just got one file back. That's cool. So now, yes, I'm following a tutorial because I typed this up. So now we're going to open Gmod and actually use it. So yeah, let me just do that, and I'm going to go into a stage. I'll come back to you when I'm done, basically. So I'm in a map, but I've got my spawn menu to load. I'm gonna get a better computer someday, but I'm working with a potato at the moment. So once you have your texture in Gmod, scroll down until you come to browse. I've got a bunch of spawn lists up there. I'll tell you how to do that later. In addons, legacy. And these are the ones that should be in your addons folder. Now, you're not going to find them, you're not going to find your thing here because these are models. We're not looking for models, we're looking for browse materials and then addons legacy. As you can see, all of the things should be there now because there should be materials in all of them unless it's just a blank folder in which it won't show up. Gmod will think it's redundant. So I'm going to go into eyes, and as you can see, I've got a whole bunch of things in there. We're concerned with dark green at the moment, so I'm just gonna spawn an inkling. Let me do that. Yeah, this is a custom spawn list, whatever. I'll go brown eyes. Now it doesn't matter if it doesn't match the one you did. As you can see, I did green and this one is brown. It doesn't matter unless your texture is one model, which of course you require the same model, but this is the same texture across all of the models, so it doesn't really matter what one you pick, it just happens to be that way. So press copy to clipboard, then go to the submaterial tool, that's not the right tool, and then, as you can see, I've already had plenty of fun with this, and then press in matte, include the results from your copy to clipboard. You copy to clipboard by pressing right click and pressing that. And then it should pop up with the name of your VMT. These should be the names of your VMT. So if you've done all that, press enter. And then press that. Now the submaterial tool will come with a bunch of lists for this. I recommend you correspond them with their corresponding things. So press eyeball L, and I'm going to press this, and voila! We now have a girl with green eye, with a green eye. Let's do this further and do the right one. So right, trying to find the right one so that I don't turn it into a weird. Okay, copy to clipboard, or if you know your file name so well, you can just press R and it will do the exact same thing. Excuse me, I did not want to go closer to the model. I'm already invading his personal space enough as it is. And then press that. And as you can see, we have now customized the model eyes of our inkling girl. Let me just... Now if you've saved everything in the correct formats, and you've saved it in the correct file type, and you've done everything correctly, you should now see this in your game. She can even be eye posed, and she can even do this. You can even do this thing with her and make it look all derpy. That's wonderful, isn't it? But that is how you make a custom texture for Gmod, at least in terms of the eyes. So see you all, have a good day, peace, and I'll go through more tutorials in terms of how you do other things. So, yay. Now as a bonus, here's a dupe making for you. So, I'm just going to show you a dupe of mine. That's not important to you. This is the inkling I normally use. As you can see, oh my god, she's all weird. I'm gonna just face pose it a bit. Smirk. And then I'm gonna use the submaterial tool again, so... Actually, we're concerned with the left eye. I'm concerned with the left eye. Yeah, my computer's about to die again, that's wonderful. You paste by pressing Ctrl V. So, that's wonderful. And then I should be able to replace it by... Now isn't that the most beautiful thing you've ever seen? Seriously? 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 Seriously?